Let's talk about the elephant in the room. Is Wonderland in the time cryptocurrency a Ponzi scheme? It's actually not, but how it works will surprise you. If you're not familiar with Wonderland project, it is a DeFi project that has been blowing up on my social media, and I think everyone's, if you're looking up staking with a current APY of 81,000%. If you're thinking to yourself, wow, that sounds a lot like Olympus DAO, the DeFi project that's built on Avalanche, Wonderland is actually a fork of Olympus. The man behind the project is Daniele Sesta, who has also been involved with Popsicle Finance as well as Abracadabra. I'll be honest, when I first started researching this project, I thought in my head, this has to be a Ponzi with that APY, what's going on? But the fact that someone's face and name is attached to this project made me believe no one is dumb enough to attach themselves to a Ponzi scheme. Right? I think it's also important to define what a Ponzi scheme actually is, because sometimes people will call something a Ponzi when they just don't understand it. For instance, Bitcoin has been called a Ponzi for years. But a Ponzi scheme, by definition, is investment fraud that pays existing investors with funds collected from new investors. And there's usually a promise of high returns with little to no risk. Let's get into what actually Wonderland is and the supposed purpose of the project. First off, the token time is backed by a basket of assets. They list MIM, time to AVAX, liquidity provider tokens, etc. And the whole point is that there is a Wonderland treasury, and for each time that is created or in supply, there's something backing it up. It goes on to say how they want to be a medium of exchange and the currency would be backed by reserve assets, which sounds great. This is kind of like the US dollar being backed by gold, and in a way seems valid. At the same time, they call out specifically building the system to optimize wealth creation in the short term. Interesting. What do they mean by that? How can one create wealth or benefit from Wonderland? It seems like there's two options, staking and minting. Staking is where you have time tokens already, you lock them in, and in return you get more time tokens. As for minting, you provide liquidity provider tokens or MIM tokens, and in exchange, you are supposed to get a discounted amount of time tokens after a certain period. I'll be honest, this is the part where I was a little suspect, because at the beginning they're talking about a medium of exchange and having reserve assets, to talking about how you can make money from getting involved with the project. If time was truly a decentralized basket of assets and time represents the medium of exchange, then it doesn't seem like there would be wealth creation on anyone's mind. It'd be more about being able to transact in time, knowing that the value of that is based on all of these reserve assets. Anyway, in either case, if you're a staker or if you're minting, you want the price of time to stay stable or actually go higher. If the price of time collapses, this is where you actually can lose money, because the whole project is designed for supply growth. So the amount of time over time is growing. Let's talk a little bit more on the staking side and how that works. Once you have time tokens from whatever exchange that you bought and you transfer it over to your wallet, this is where you can start to lock the time in, and you get an equal amount of something called memories. This is the actual token that gets rebased, and rebased is another way of saying that your balance is increasing every 8 hours. So the rebase time is every 8 hours or 3 times a day. As of this video, the price of one time is $8,680. So if you just stake for one single day, you're going to get a 1.8% return on time, not USD. This is not a stable coin. It's not pegged to US dollar. It's not pegged to anything other than having a floor price of 1 MIM, which we'll get to. But if you stake one time, the potential return, if the price of time stays the same, of around $160. This is the part where you should be asking, where do they get the APY? Why am I getting paid $160 within a day for getting involved with this project? Well, the APY calculation is 1 plus the reward yield to the power of 1,095, which is simply 3 rebasings times 365 days. The reward yield calc is time distributed divided by time total staked, time distributed calculation, time total supply times reward rate. This probably doesn't mean anything to you. The most important part, though, is to realize that at its current state, you're talking about a 1.8% of the total staked amount is being distributed in time. Also, 100% of how this APY is backed into. The kicker is this reward rate. And if you look at the documentation, the reward rate is actually based on the protocol and is subject to change at any time. Also, the project doesn't shy away from talking about potentially getting super rich, because at the bottom of their calculator on their website, they have potential number of Lambos. If the price of time stays the same with this exponential APY, we're talking about turning $1,000 of USD into over $855,000 after 365 days. That, of course, is if the price of time stays the same. The second piece of the equation is minting or bonding, where someone puts up a certain amount of MIM or liquidity provider tokens, and in return, they're told that they will be given a certain amount of discounted time further out. Upfront, the protocol is getting money and they are promising a reward later on, which sounds a little like a Ponzi scheme, but the fact that they're paying it out in time, and that's not pegged to the US dollars, they aren't making any promises of you're guaranteed to make 30%, you're guaranteed to make 40%, and that is important. When this minting is going on, there's also a distribution of time to three parties: the minter, the DAO itself, the community that's running the project, and stakers. Fantastic. At a high level, that's the concept of the project. People are making money, you're getting time, you're depositing time, you're getting more time. Time is everywhere. Time for everyone. I think the pros of this project have been made clear. The whole point is to create wealth and talk about potentially making a ton of money. Now let's talk about the red flags with this project to counteract this pro of making money. For every time, it is backed up with one MIM. Now, if you're not familiar with what MIM is, it's a USD pegged stablecoin, meaning every time is only backed with one US dollar. Now, in the documentation, they talk about how there is a floor price for the project because for every time it's backed up by one MIM, but they also talk about how there is a massive premium on the price of time right now. At the end of the day, it's intrinsic value of time plus this premium, which is a massive, massive piece. At the time of this video, the market cap of every time multiplied by the supply is 2.9 billion. So if you back into the total supply of time, it's 334,000, meaning that it is currently backed up, according to the documentation, is one MIM or 334,000. So $334,000 in intrinsic value versus a market cap of 2.9 billion. The team itself actually calls this out, saying the price of time is irrelevant in the long term, so as long as it doesn't basically go to zero. So they're saying that your time balance is going to grow exponentially. So even if the price of time is 400 when you buy, crashes to 2, because of the exponential growth, you still make money. They also talk about, though, at the same time, that the price of time is extremely volatile and that you should do your own research on whether or not this project suits your goals, as they expect huge swings in the price, especially if things turn bearish. A little bit of a cop-out. They also talk about how over time, the price of time is essentially programmed to converge closer and closer to zero as the supply continues to just increase forever. The last red flag that I noticed is the project isn't audited, and they actually call out to stay cautious because they're not audited. I feel like that one was a bit of a slap in the face because they're literally calling out in the documentation, hey, we're not audited, we know, therefore stay cautious because this could all collapse. You're probably asking, why, if everyone knows this, or if they've read the documentation, why are people buying into time? I have two reasons I can think of that the price of time is actually going up even after they launched a few months ago. The first one is liquidity. Because so many people are staking their time, it actually locks up liquidity and puts pressure to the upside, especially if people are buying time, they're staking their time, the float of time available is lower and lower. And as people basically buy, stake, it's going to increase. They actually have this chart. This is a chart on their documentation site, and how if they unstake and sell, it will hurt everyone. So they're basically encouraging everyone to diamond hand and only stake because that increases the price. Everyone's making money. Everyone's happy. Then in today's age, you have influencers, people that are talking about cryptocurrency, and people love to brag about insane gains. With this project, and the stability and actually increase in price of time, people are making a lot of money. If you got in early and you're selling off certain amounts of time, you have done pretty well. So I can't knock anyone for making money, but it seems like everything is programmed for the price of time to eventually collapse. Based on everything I looked into, it isn't technically a Ponzi scheme, but they use deceptive tactics, and the algorithm, the way it's created, is actually quite genius because people people pile in for that higher APY. So as long as the price of time doesn't collapse, it gets word of mouth, people get excited about it, and people continue to pile in. It's kind of like a giant game of chicken in my mind, where once people start to sell, there's kind of panic or bearish sentiment. It can get ugly real quick as everyone starts to panic that the price is going down, everyone starts unstaking, starts selling, and there's just a giant market dump. When does that happen? One day, 1 week, 1 month, a year, 5 years? I don't know. That's the problem. You can never time this market. That's why you see some people stake, make their money, pull it out, and let the rest ride, because they're smart enough to realize, hey, this is probably not going to last forever. Whereas greedy people, they make money, they invest even more, and if it does collapse, then they can lose money that maybe they weren't willing to lose. That's where people get hurt. Anyway, hopefully this video helped you understand how the project works, why people are getting this crazy APY, and you can make your own decision on what exactly your viewpoint on the project is and what you want to do with your money. If you did enjoy this video, make sure to hit that like button, as well as consider subscribing to Main Street Wolf, where we talk cryptocurrency, investing, anything to do with money. Thanks guys for watching, and have a great day.